welcome to the Wandering Creatives podcast. I'm your host, Allie, and joining me today is Nicole Tuxbury. Nicole is the founder of Love, Live, Hustle, which is all about overcoming yourself, having fun, and building the business of your dreams. Nicole is also the host of the Overcome Yourself podcast and runs the Chill Entrepreneur Spot Facebook group. Thanks so much for joining me, Nicole.
Yay, thank you so much.
We're pumped to have you on the podcast today. So glad that we were able to connect. We actually met in a podcasting group where you can kind of go in and connect with other podcasters and guest on each other's podcasts and just, kind of a podcast community. So I was super happy that we connected through that. And I'm so glad that you can join me today.
I'm so excited to be here. Yay. We had so much fun recording the episode that you were on for Overcome Yourself. So I'm really excited to be here. I know we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah. I can't wait to kind of pick your brain about entrepreneurship and what your podcast is all about. Really is overcoming yourself and pushing past, boundaries or restrictions that maybe you've put on yourself or society has put on yourself and kind of making those moves to live your dream. But before we jump into all of the good stuff, let's get to know you a little bit more. You do a little bit of everything. And it all kind of ties into this big goal of helping entrepreneurs and individuals being able to guide people into tapping into themselves. And something we discussed on your podcast was kind of how you can work to overcome your anxieties and depressions and all these societal norms that have been put on you to really live the creative life that you want. Can you share a little bit about yourself and what motivated you to start Love, Live, Hustle and how you got into all of this?
Yes. Okay. A lot of good stuff. Great questions that you ask. So when you say I'm a jack of all trades, I am. And it kind of came from necessity, because I wanted to figure this out. And I didn't have the money to pay someone to create graphics for me. I didn't have, you know what I'm saying? And the copywriting, because there's a lot of moving pieces. And so I taught myself and I had to, I learned every kind of piece of the step. I decided it took me a really long time to start my website, but I'm really glad that I did. And it's something beautiful that it grows with you, So it's something that I've grown into, I guess, over the last few years. I had to take a lot of imperfect action, and just do it.
I love action. I don't know if I've heard that before, but I absolutely love that phrase. Imperfect action.
Yes. I've heard it from a few other speakers. I'd love to quote them and I can't remember. There's, a few times, so my bad. I didn't come up with it though, that's for sure. Yeah, but you have to take imperfect action, I was on a call with a client and she's like, oh, my blog is a mess. Like, I can't believe I did this all wrong. And I told her, you know what? You wouldn't have known to ask these questions if you hadn't gotten started. You wouldn't have known that this was wrong if you hadn't done it in the first place, And so that getting over that, I had to overcome myself. I had to get over like, oh, I don't know, and just do it.
Just dive into it.
Yeah. And where did it start? It really just started with a website. I saw so many people out there. They were like, I'm making money online and you can do it too. And I was like, man, if they could do it, right? There has to be another option. It came from necessity as well. I have a neurodiverse brain and like the whole 9-to-5 life just didn't vibe with me. And so I had to ask the question, is there a better way? And that's really where it came from. Like, I just didn't want to it was just so boring. Like, I just had to be there for no reason. Like, I used to get really bored in school too and be like, I already finished my work. Why do I need to sit here and wait for everybody else like to figure it out? Like, can I just like do something else,
As someone who is just now figuring out that they are also have a neurodiverse brain, I guess. And it's, I'm 34 now, 35, somewhere in there.
I forget too, don't worry.
I'm in my 30s.
Somewhere in there, yeah, exactly.
Mid-30 range, it's all good. But, I'm just now kind of learning more about like neurodiversity and like what that is. And it makes so much more sense now. Everything that I've gone through, like up to this point, was there a moment, or I guess, could you explain a little bit what we mean when we say neurodiverse brains? And then also kind of, was there a moment where you were like, oh, that's why I, don't fit that 9 to 5? Like, was there kind of an aha moment for you?
I guess it was, I don't know. It was just something I guess I stumbled into. Mm-hmm. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I was like 16. I went through a lot of stuff with that. But very recently, I was talking to my doctor. Okay, there was like a few things that happened, right? It's super important that you talk to your doctor. Like, be honest. TikTok helped me a lot because, and you know what? I'm going to say that because I didn't know a lot of the stuff that I was going through was something that was a sign. Like not eating the entire day, like not letting myself eat the whole day. That's an ADHD thing, There was certain things that I saw videos and I was like, huh. Mm-hmm. And so I went to my doctor and I was like, look, I never talked to you about this before because I didn't know I needed to. And she was like, okay, yeah, let's do some tests. And I ended up getting, some blood tests. And one of the big keys for me was I had a vitamin deficiency. It was something so simple. And so for like 15, 20 years, I was dealing with a freaking vitamin deficiency and all I needed was some freaking vitamins, man. Like I didn't need to be medicated with a bunch of stuff. I needed vitamins.
So wild.
So important. So big, like talk to your doctor and be like, this is something weird that happened. This is my quirk. Does this mean anything? Because a lot of those quirks are, people, oh, you're so cute because you do this. Well, actually, there's like, and then it just helps because, when you're like crying all the time and then you're like, oh, what's wrong? And then it's a vitamin deficiency and you're like, holy crap, it wasn't just in my head. Like there was something that was preventing me from doing this. And so that played a big part in overcoming myself. Like it took some time to get there. It was really my business that allowed me to do that. Because once I established my business, now like I get to own my benefits, like I was able to get my healthcare and then I can go to the doctor and I can buy, and so it's like this big snowball that just started happening. And it all started with like small habits. That's what I always go back to is like little habits. Because it's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing where I had to get well enough to know to need to ask for help, kind of thing. Does that make any sense?
Oh, 100%. And what's really wild is like everything you're saying, I'm like, oh my God, me too. Like listeners, you can't see me, but the whole time that Nicole was talking, I was literally just like nodding my head yes and like pointing at myself because that entire yes, like TikTok helped me realize some things. I was just diagnosed with ADHD like a month ago. And I also
everything
have a
falls into place.
deficiency.
Everything just falls into place, man. It's just like, wow. Now you know what to do with it, it's empowering.
It's so true, like you were saying, with starting with little things and then building up to like your full business and then kind of having that time and that freedom to like start taking care of yourself is spot on. Because I think a lot of times when we like work in the corporate world, right, it's like kind of drilled into us that like taking time off is bad and taking care of yourself is bad. and because I did the same thing. When I quit my 9 to 5, that's when I really started taking care of myself and like my mental health and everything, and kind of very similar to kind of what you were saying. So that's very interesting. It's kind of wild.
No, it's just starting to ask the questions, like when you're sitting in traffic, instead of just being mad about in traffic, is there a better way? Can I make this money that I'm making somewhere else. Like, that's really where it started from. Like, how can I do this in a different way? Like, I can create an income, right? Because it's not about having a job, it's about having an income. You have to create an income, right? Like, generating income, that's a permanent problem. So having a job, one of the things that I quote in my book, a conversation I had with my dad, is having a job is like having it's a temporary solution to a permanent problem, you know? And I started to realize that, like, especially us millennials, like, we were graduating in 2008.
Yeah.
We graduated when the whole world fell apart. So we saw what corporate America did to our parents and our uncles and our grandparents. We saw pensions that they were supposed to get that just vanished overnight. We saw people get fired right before their retirement, and now they can't retire. We saw the real face of corporate America. And I think that, you know, seeing that and then trying to go into that system, you're like, it's always going to be in the back of your head. Like, these people are going to, you know, because you're just a number, you know what I mean? And allowing myself to get creative is what allowed me to finally, like, break free, you know, like the creativity. And one of the things, like, with the neurodiversity is learning to lean into those strengths, because I'm all over the place sometimes, but if I'm doing something I like, right, you get into the zone and you could spend hours doing it and it's going to come out magnificent. So learning what that is and then using it to your advantages, looking at things that you were like, oh, something that's been a weakness your entire life, and just saying, how can I use this? How can this be of a benefit to me? You know, because that's what I did with the depression. Like, how can this be a benefit? And I wrote a book. I want to use it for something. You know, I went through it. I can help someone with that. And so it's just adjusting our perspective on things. Yeah.
Yeah. No, what was one of the first things that you leaned into? Like, did you start with blogging, or did you have another kind of creative outlet that you really jumped into to kind of get going?
Well, my business journey started before I found the online space. So I found a lot of MLM companies, and I was introduced to the idea of business. I was introduced to the idea of, like, buying something and then selling it. I was introduced to the idea of, like, managing people. I started reading leadership books. And so that's what kind of made me stumble into the online world. Another thing is that I messed up my back. When I was a little kid, I had an accident on a boat. And then when I was a server for a really long time. And I carried the trays because, you know, I'm that stubborn person that will take all the groceries like inside the house instead of making 3 trips. And so I fucked up my back. So that was another factor that I was like, I got to figure out how to do this, you know, because that's like, that's your back, man. Like when I was like 25, I went to a doctor. He's like, you have the back of an 80-year-old. Like, if you keep serving, wheelchair in a few years. And I was like, holy crap, like, this is not okay. Like, I can't, how am I going to give my body to to any industry, you know, like, that's not cool, man. So the MLM introduced me to the idea. I was sold the idea of that you could have freedom of time and money. I met people that had both of those things, you know, because you could have all the time in the world, but you have no money. So what are you going to do? And you could have all the money in the world, but you have no time. So you can't actually enjoy it. You know, it was like when I got the job with the health benefits, but I couldn't go to the doctor because the doctor's only open during business hours and I couldn't take time off. So what is the point of having the money or having that if you can't use it? It didn't make sense to me. And so then I discovered the website building. And so I was like, I did not understand how people were making money on their blogs. I didn't get it. I just saw so many people doing it, and I read so many articles, and I was watching videos, and I was like, but where does the money come from? And so that's why I just started doing it. They were like, oh, just put up a website. So I put up a website, no money. Like, okay, there's got to be something else to this. So I learned about the logo design, and I learned about copywriting. And I finally understand what that means. Because for a lot of years, I was like, copywriting, but like,
what is this?
well, what is it? You know, and there's like software for everything. So you can like you can teach yourself. And then it was how do I use all of these things that I've learned, because in with the ADHD thing, we hyper focus. And so we find something that we like and we'll hyper focus.
Yep.
And then we will learn anything and everything that has to do with that. And then we're like, I'm going to go sell this. And then the imposter syndrome kicks in and it's like, who the hell are you? You've only been doing this for a week. You're not an expert in this, but like you kind of are, because you just invested like, hundreds of hours in the last month or two, just deep diving into the, like concentrated effort. And so I was stuck in that circle of like becoming an expert in something and then imposter syndrome. So I couldn't charge for it. And then I'd go become an expert in something else. And then I couldn't and then
yeah, you are like, yes, I identify with all of that so much. I'm kind of in that space right now, actually, where I get imposter syndrome a little bit still, but I could sit there and just like you were saying, just study something and like really get into it a lot. And then when it comes to like pulling the trigger to enact it or to, sell a service or whatever, I like completely am all over the place. I'm like, what do I do now? And then I just move on to something else. Everything you're saying, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes.
And then that's normal, right? That's okay. That happens. What we have to do is catch ourselves and realize, hold up, and like validate, like I might not be, a 10-year expert, but I know more than somebody who hasn't done the last month of the last week of research, And so there's a lot of things. There's a lot of like moving pieces, like with each level up in my business, I've had to like, face different like demons that, like those negative things, because it's like a level. You don't just like, I'm like, okay, now I don't, I don't do this anymore. Like it's going to happen again. And so these are levels that every time you reach a new level, there's new challenges, there's new problems, there's new everything. Because like, if you're on your podcast, when you're like in level 1, you get to, 100 downloads and like, that means the whole world. But then that goal's accomplished. So now what? You can't just, that's not the, you know what I mean? So there's like a new level, there's a new training, there's a new mentality that you've got to take. And then when you start leading people, that's a whole different beast on its own.
Yeah.
And so you've got to learn to structure your business so you can hire a team, so you don't build yourself a job and then just hate your life again. I did that too.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I feel like that's something that maybe a lot of like entrepreneurs don't think about, or like creatives and artists and stuff like that. Like I like speaking for myself, I'm like, oh, I just want to like make art and sell art and put it out there. But then I also want to have like a brick and mortar shop where I'm selling stickers and like a stationery store. And to get to that point, I am going to have to hire people eventually. Right. So how can I set myself up now so that when that time comes, I'm prepared and I know what I'm doing? Because I think about that a lot. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know the first thing about like hiring people and having a shop. So it's
because that's a different level. And it's okay if, if we're not there. I made the mistake of jumping in and I was not there. And so I wasted a lot of money. Right. But those are the lessons that now I can use and I teach people. And, like that's where it came from. It all came from really like necessity and deciding I have to do something different. Like this isn't working. What will,
This episode of the Wandering Creatives podcast is sponsored by Coots Creations. Branding and marketing for creatives by creatives. Coots Creations serves small businesses, entrepreneurs, and creatives throughout the country with branding, marketing, and social media management. We accomplish this by creating unique graphics, a cohesive visual brand, and content that tells your brand's story and builds trust with your customers. Visit cootscreations.com and book your free consultation today.
What would you say is one of the most rewarding things that you that about working for yourself? And then also on the opposite end of that, what's like maybe some of the more challenging things that you've encountered?
Good question.
Oh, yeah.
Setting those habits was, I guess, a challenge.
So hard.
You just have to learn how to, because I kind of would overwhelm myself, and so we try to make like these humongous life changes, and I'm cutting out all bread in all my life. And like, you love bread. Like, come on, bro. Like, that's not going to happen. And there's a lot of things that happens with that. It's you're taking withdrawals out of your own trust bank, because now you're not even trusting yourself. You can't trust yourself to do the things that you said you were going to do. So that was a big, big thing that, just hit me straight in the head. I've got to learn to trust me again, and to trust my words. So it went from, I'm going to drink 8 gallons of water a day to, before I drink anything else, I'm going to have a glass of water, and then I can drink, whatever I want. So I set up something that's simple, that I can habit stack, and I set up a reward. And that's a big one. Rewarding yourself. When you say you're going to reward yourself, and then you accomplish whatever you did, and then you don't reward yourself, you're setting yourself up for failure, because you don't trust yourself to do what you said. Those were some of the challenges. I think the biggest ones, like the scariest ones that I face, is like, you got to learn to trust you. And then some of the best stuff, is setting your own schedule, like literally work whenever you want within reason. You kind of go crazy in the beginning with that.
Yep.
And then working whenever I want turns into like, you just didn't get anything done. So setting those habits and learning what the right activities are. So you don't get stuck doing like office work. Like, you've got to be talking to people. You've got to be getting traffic. You've got to be doing something that's going to produce money, all the time when you're working, like in your work hours. I reward myself. Like, one of my goals is like making sure I take 4 vacations a year, because people with jobs can't do that, or normally don't, so I'm working on that. That's one of my goals that I'm accomplishing this year. I'm super excited about. I mean, I'm not going on like, like 2-month vacations, like 4 times a year, but like, just leaving and going away and having some fun and disconnecting, self-care.
Even just like staycations, like totally worth it. Totally worth it.
Turning off the phone, like closing the laptop, turning off the phone, just doing something within your own, just self-care, learning to incorporate self-care like into your life. Like,
oh my gosh. Yeah. Again,
not feeling guilty, because you felt guilty. Like, you go and like you sit, you're like sitting in the park or sitting on the beach, and then you're like, So no, like when you're at work, you're working. And so that when you're playing, like, you don't have to, like, you don't have to be worrying about the other while you're doing one. So
again, you're like speaking to my soul. I'm like, yes, everything you're saying, spot on. I wanted to go back to something you were talking about, because this is again something I struggle with. I'm using this podcast as a coaching session. But,
go for it.
I feel like it's probably something that other people kind of find themselves stuck in. Like, you were saying it's easy to get caught up in kind of like the office work when you're working for yourself, and that's something I find myself getting caught up in a lot, because I'm a planner. Like, and I also kind of, to what you were saying earlier, like, I very much enjoy creating graphics and doing that type of stuff. And so I can lose hours of my day just creating graphics and doing like social media planning and all of that. But you said like you should be spending your day, your working hours, like talking and making money. And that's something that I have not been able to like fully realize yet, because there's a mix in there of like social anxiety, but then also, where do I find people who, how do I network? Where do I find potential clients? Like, do you have, I guess, any tips or recommendations for people who might be kind of like me, where we're getting caught up in like the office stuff and the planning and not focusing so much on, well, now I got to make money. Like,
Yes.
Do you have any kind of like tips?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I had to figure it out, right?
Yeah, it's like you've done it.
So first of all, you've got to know how you make money.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't clear on that for a long time. So I didn't know what to post about. I didn't know what to blog about. I didn't know what to podcast about, because I didn't know what solution I was providing for people. And I struggled with that, and it showed in my bank account. Mm-hmm. Right? So getting very, very clear on what you do, like really what you do. I'm not even going to talk about your niche, but what do you do and how much do you charge for it? Mm-hmm. And that takes a while to develop sometimes. You know, you're not going to know that. You might not know, especially if you're just stepping into this world. You don't even know what you can call yourself yet, because like it took me a while reading and doing trainings and this and that. I'm like, oh, that's a whole like profession in itself. Like, oh my goodness, you know? So, you know, jumping in and understanding, doing like your niche research, but I could never really grasp it like the way that it's kind of taught in the business world, I guess. I did an internship with Rachel Peterson, and she teaches, you know, that you are already niche down. Like just by who you are already attracting and repelling people. And so getting really, really clear on you is going to help you find those people, like the people that you want to hang out with, the people that are going to resonate with you, because you already have something that people like or something that people don't like. And so leaning into those things, like some of the questions that when I do my, you know, like when we do like a niche research power hour call that I do with clients, I ask them questions like to help you understand what I mean. Do you prefer coffee or tea?
Tea.
Okay, so that's one of your niche points, right? You are going to find people who are going to resonate, like tea drinkers, right? I'm a coffee person. I don't understand tea. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't think it tastes good. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And you're like, I don't really get coffee. Like, it's like, it's too strong. Is this, is whatever. It looks like dirty water. I don't know. Right. But right there in itself, that you love tea versus coffee is one thing in itself. That's something that you could talk about to your audience, because, you know, like that's who you want to attract, right? You want to attract tea drinkers so that you can make tea jokes and memes about tea. And they're going to be like, oh my God, that's so funny. You know, they know the difference between like Earl Grey and black tea. You know what I mean? I've heard those names. I don't know what they mean.
Oh, I love that. That's such because it's like you said, it's completely kind of like the opposite of what you're told when from like a business perspective, like what is your niche? What is your sub niche? But like looking at it as almost like personality traits.
Are your people.
Yeah, but yeah.
Who are your people? And then build in whatever your solution is, right? So like another question that I asked them would be, are they going to be watching something like Family Guy or something with the housewives? I don't know how many housewives there are, whatever. I'm a Family Guy girl, right?
Yeah, I'm like probably Family Guy.
Probably Family Guy, right? So my people are Family Guy, Archer, Rick and Morty, Dr. Whovian, right? The Walking Dead. Those are my people. People that watch The Housewives, no offense to you, but I can't talk to you about that because I don't watch it. So I have no points of reference. My aunt used to watch one. I know there's a Ramona and she likes Pinot Grigio. That's about as far as I can get with The Housewives. That's all I know, you know? So knowing those things, like that is how I kind of help my people kind of get a little bit more clarity on who's your niche, right? Because those are two completely different audiences that you're going to be talking. You know, like the it girl that's always doing her hair, Or is it someone like me that I just kind of threw it up and then good luck,
Why mine's short.
Exactly. So, though that's who we're going to vibe with. And so you can make jokes about, hey, where's my messy hair crew? And then your people are going to be like, hey, that's me. I work from home and my house is a mess and my hair is a mess, but that's okay because we're all I'm not the only one. That's what you want people to think. I'm not the only one. When I talk about being neurodiverse, like it's just so people know, oh crap, I'm not the only one that does that.
Mm-hmm.
Because when somebody told me, hey, that happens to me too, you're like, okay, I feel like I'm part of like the human experience. I'm not an anomaly, I'm not weird. I'm just a little bit different. That's it.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's a great way to kind of, that's super, super helpful to look at it that
Think
way.
yourself, man. Just, find your people. Because you don't want to have to be looking up, what are the Desperate Housewives doing this week? Or I don't know, whatever the hell they're called. Like you just see a joke. You're watching Family Guy. Oh, crap, look, guys, this is hilarious. And then your people are already in your group, And then like within whatever it is that you're doing. So within the health, within wealth, whatever section you're in, you narrow it down a little bit like that. So my group is the Chill Entrepreneur Spot. And I help, entrepreneurs with their websites, with their SEO so that they could chill out. Because if your website's generating you traffic, then you could chill, right? You could just do your thing and then you don't have to be at your computer because that's what I wanted. And so my people, they're super chill, but they also have websites. If you don't have a website, you're not gonna get what's going on, right? And so just like that, that's how I was able to kind of figure out, okay, this is my spot, so where are my chill entrepreneurs at? Come join us.
Love it.
Do you know what goes great with listening to podcasts? If you said a warm drink, you're absolutely right. Just imagine you're sitting back, you're listening to your favorite podcast, all while holding a nice, cute-ass mug in your hand with your favorite hot beverage in it. If you're wondering, where can I get a mug like that? Well, you're in luck. You can swing by the Coots Creations Cute Coffee and Tea Mugs Etsy shop. They've got everything from enamel coffee cups to travel mugs, all featuring adorable original artwork. Head over to etsy.com/shop/Coots Creations and use promo code WANDER for 10% off any mug.
This is again something I find I struggle with is I'll have like a lot of I think they're great ideas, right? I want to start a blog. I want to start a YouTube channel. because I'm thinking of income streams, right? Especially like passive income stream. Like I, want an Etsy shop. I want to do this, blah, 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 blah. And oftentimes I get overwhelmed because it ends up taking up a lot of time when you have so many different like revenue streams going on. So I guess one of my questions is like, how do you deal with that? Like, do you ever get kind of overwhelmed with all the different things that you have going on? And what are some like ways that you deal with being overwhelmed and maybe, scheduling or something?
Okay. Yes. Very, very good question. I don't necessarily schedule. The only thing that I schedule really time-wise are my phone calls. Everything else, I guess I kind of habit stack it. That's something that I learned in Atomic Habit. That's a book by James Clear. I swear by the book. It validated all the things I was doing and it gave names. And I was like, oh my God, this is why this is working, Very good. So what I like to do is batching my work. So, if I'm going to be working on graphics, your brain is in that headspace. So if you're in a totally right brain, colors and all this stuff and design and then you try to turn around and then finish writing out a blog post and try to go all left brain and let me cite this and let me get statistics. Your brain's gonna be like, whoa,
what is this?
What's going on? So leaning into those things and just batching that work. So if I'm working on copywriting, if I'm in that flow, that's where I'll stay and I'll make sure, I'll crank it out. The other question I have a follow-up question to part of your question is,
Mhm.
when you're creating all this content, are you creating like you create a video and then you put it on YouTube, and then you create another video and you put it over here, and then you create another video and you put it over there?
No, I
Or
try
are
to
you using-
repurpose. I try to
Okay.
repurpose as much as possible, but it's something that something I want to start doing with my podcast episodes is turning the podcast into a blog post, and then from a blog post into like a video with caption, and then posting it on the different social platforms where
Exactly.
those
Yeah,
media
like
types work.
use that to your advantage. Like,
Mhm.
absolutely. Like, just because you create a piece of content doesn't mean that you're never allowed to talk about that thing ever again.
Yeah.
Because I would get into that and I'd be like, well, I already wrote about this.
Mhm.
But you have to remember, like, even the social media algorithms, they're not showing all your stuff to everybody.
Yeah.
Only like 7% of people are seeing 7% of your stuff, and like you have like 7% of their attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
And so, yeah, it's great to repurpose. Like when I record my podcast episodes, if I'm doing an interview, I'll record it on Zoom. Then I've got the transcription going on Otter. And so now I have 3 different media contents that I can use right there without having to do anything else. Because I have a video that I can use, I have the audio that I can use, and now I have a transcription that I can use. And from that, you can create all kinds of content.
Yeah.
That's another thing about working with teams is you find what Rachel Peterson calls your queen bee role. Find what is the one type of content that you create. That, like, is it your videos? Is it your written posts? Is it your audios, your podcast, whatever that is? And then eventually all the other stuff can be hired out. You can hire someone to take that transcript and create a blog post out of it. You can hire someone to take quotes out of that, create images for social media. You can hire someone to take that transcript and create a YouTube video that just has words in it with, some, music that you bought in the background or something.
Mhm.
So you can create massive amounts of content if you stick to creating like your type of content. So like these podcast episodes, you could do so much content with like each episode, pull quotes and then write an entire blog post around a quote that you pulled from one of your podcast episodes. Do rounds up. There's so many options for creating content. And when you're creating graphics, like writing Canva, I have a whole page of resources for entrepreneurs on my site. And one of the things that I recommend is Canva. They have all those templates. You are totally allowed to use those templates. Just when I first got started, I was like, this can't be, this is theft. I'm stealing someone's design.
Canva is literally like, I tell everyone I meet about Canva. I'm like,
Yes.
Hey, you need to design something? Canva.
Canva
It is
yes.
the best.
And all you've got to do when you do that is resize it. You create something, resize that junk, resize it. You got Facebook, you got Instagram, you got Pinterest, you got everything, and just change some of the fonts. And you're good to go, man. Like, you could create massive amounts of content in minutes like that. Like, get your little templates and stuff. But the other thing is focus on one at a time. Focus on one at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. The cool thing about having a business online is once you put it up, it lives up there. It's up there. You're good to go, right? So you don't have to be constantly creating content either. Once you create a good amount of content, you could take some time off and just start pointing back to the things you've already created. So like you could take some time and build up your YouTube video. And then once you've got a bunch of YouTube videos, you've got some recorded, you've got some in editing, you've got some live, then, hey, you know what? Let's start throwing some of these on some reels, or let's start, showing them, I don't know. But little by little, you create one at a time. That's super, super, super important because you will overwhelm yourself. Like there's just too many. And then you think you can handle it. And then the notifications start. And that's when you're like, oh my God, what have I done? You've got to be able to keep up with those notifications. So it's important that you grow little by little. A, so you can get good at what you're doing. B, you can eventually hire someone to help you, but you've got to be making money. So
Mm-hmm.
you got to learn how to do it right so you can hire someone to help you take on the other ones, you know?
Yeah.
So like I said, it's that snowball. It's just little by little taking imperfect action. And then these things will grow together. You know, it's kind of like like those steps, you know, just one at a time, man, one at a time.
And have a good foundation, build that foundation, and then you'll be able to let it rot. So before we wrap up, I did want to ask you about your book, because you have a book coming out. So can you tell us a little bit about your book and when and where it will be available?
Yes. Okay. So I am publishing it on Amazon. I'm not sure when this episode is coming out. So hopefully it'll be out by then. You know, like I've still got a few, I've got to do like the final edit, and then we've got to get some beta readers. So, I still got some time here, but it's coming out soon. It is with my editor at this moment. So, and it's all about what we've been talking about. Well, I didn't even mention gratitude. That's one of the biggest things that I've learned this road. It was one of those things that I was like, no, that's too simple to work. Like, when you learn algebra and then like, addition and subtraction, you're like, no, this is too simple. There's got to be something hidden in here.
Yep.
So gratitude was, the lessons that I learned, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I bared my soul on those pages, man. And then talking about leaning into what you thought were your weaknesses. I provided a lot of examples and research. I was so excited to find research that was like, showing that, yes, what I'm thinking about is totally correct. And underdogs have a better chance of winning, if they have the right mindset. And so we are, the chill entrepreneurs, we're the underdogs, man. We're the underestimated ones. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm a Latina. I'm LGBT. I'm neurodivergent. There's so many things that say I shouldn't be in business for myself. And yet here I am, and so that's what I wanted to share in my book is, you can, overcome yourself. Like you can do it. You need help. You're going to need your doctor. You're going to need friends. You're going to need something, but, focusing on the tiny, tiny, tiny little habits every day, focusing on thinking what you're thinking about, that can change your whole life, man. And defining success on your own terms. I had to include a chapter about what does success mean, because it can look different for everyone. Just having time of freedom and money. Once your bills are paid, the only correlation between money and happiness is as long as all like your bills are paid. So if you've got a roof over your head, you've got food, you've got water, you've got safety, like the stress from money goes away. So, when you're like looking for more and you need millions and millions, not really. Like once you've got your essentials, your brain is like, okay, cool. I'm not stressed about money anymore. And when you know that, once you've got that can be success. If you've got all your stuff paid for, that's what that means to you. Run with it. If success means, having, $50 million, you know what, bro, go for it. Do your thing. You have to define it. What does it mean to you?
And that's a big thing. Again, I'll use my personal experience, but, going from the corporate world where success is always kind of measured in numbers, right? Metrics. Like we hit this many sales, or we talk to this many people and we achieve this many contracts, yada, yada, yada. And so moving to work for myself, that was something I was like, okay, because I like to set goals, right? Because we were talking about like goals, rewards. I like to do that. But I definitely had to pause and think about, okay, like what actually is success to me? Is it having a lot of money, or is it like just like freedom to travel when I want, where I want? Like kind of redefining success was, I think, probably one of the first things I focused on when I like first started. So it kind of helps switch your brain over a little bit.
Well, if you're getting in the car and you're going to go somewhere, you have to and you don't know where it is, right? you've got to put the destination in the map. If you don't know the destination, how can you form a route to get there? You're just going to wander, right? So you've got to figure out what is success. For a long time, success for me was not feeling sad. I'm super successful. I'm super successful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that is
sadness,
a good one.
yeah. So in that way, I love it. And I'm not where I want to be, but if you keep looking at the horizon and that's like your end goal, you're never going to freaking get there. You've got to look back and see, where did I come from and where am I, and what is the trajectory that I'm on, I think is the most important thing. And another thing, I'm an admin in another group about neurodiversity for women, neurodiverse strategies. I always say it wrong. That's why I think about it. And the guy that actually like runs the group, his name is Brian, and he doesn't ask for goals. He doesn't like asking for goals because there's like a really heavy connotation with goals and the corporate America. Yep. So Mondays he asks us, what are your intentions? So don't be hard on yourself. If you don't like the word goals, don't use it. Be like, my intention for today. Because then if you don't accomplish it, be like, you know what, that was my intention, but something got in the way. My intention is now to get it done tomorrow. Because then you don't feel like a failure. And another thing about corporate America is something that you've got to get used to is corporate America doesn't like mistakes. And corporate America doesn't like failure. And entrepreneurship is all about how fast can I make these mistakes? How fast can I fail so that I can succeed? And so it is all about, you have to make mistakes and you have to get comfortable with making mistakes. And, we're all human, man. So you've got to get out, of that corporate mindset of failure's bad. It's not, it's just a lesson. And that's been drilled into us since, elementary school. Failure's bad. You get an F, blah, blah, blah. That helped me a lot. Failure is not really failure. Like the only way I can fail is if I give up. I am never going to give up. Therefore, I can never fail. Allison Marshall said that. I can quote her because I remember. But I love that. I wrote it on my wall and I put it up. So I can't fail because quitting is the only way I can fail. So I can fail. So failure is not failure. It's a lesson.
Oh, that's so, love it. Well, I want to, I could talk to you forever, I think. Nicole, I might have to have you back on for future topics.
Whenever you want, let me know.
A wealth of knowledge that I just love kind of digging into your brain a little bit. But before we go, do you have anything that you're like currently working on, and where can folks find you on social media?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so join me in the Facebook group, the Chill Entrepreneur Spot. I'm doing SEO trainings in there. Like, I'm giving away all my secrets. It's a free group on Facebook. You can come hang out. It's like our room of requirement, I guess. Anything you need with your business, come on in. You love that, right? I love it. I watched Harry Potter this weekend. So I was like, this is our room of requirement. Yes.
I love it.
So anything you need with your business, come on in. I've got experts from like all kinds of industries in there, and we're working on getting more people. I want to help out lots and lots of entrepreneurs. So, if you've got a website, if you want to build a website, you're curious about your website, you want to get more traffic, you want to know how does SEO work, join us. Like, I'm doing all my trainings in there. So that's definitely the place to be with me, and stay in touch.
Awesome. I cannot thank you enough for joining me on the episode today and sharing your knowledge and your secrets with us. And I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. You are amazing, Allie. I really appreciate you inviting me on here. And thank you for the compliments.
You're so very welcome. It's all true. So thank you so much again. And listeners, I will, of course, drop all of Nicole's information in the episode description. So be sure to join her Facebook group and check out her website and maybe pick up a gratitude journal or two.
This has been a Coots Creations production. Follow the show on Instagram at wandering_creative_ and on Twitter at wandering_pod. For more information, go to cootscreations.com. Like, rate, review, and subscribe. To sponsor the Wandering Creatives podcast, visit www.cootscreations.com/podcast-sponsorship-opportunities. You can also click the link in the episode description below. To be a guest or a featured maker on the podcast, click the link in our Instagram bio or contact us at cootscreationsllc@gmail.com.